Almost as much, I know, as Julie Gunlock of the Independent Women's Forum is looking forward to another round of snow. Are you excited, Julie? Are you excited?
You're not going to believe this. I'm actually going to Florida this weekend.
Well, you suck. You know, I have nothing else to say to you, Julie Gunlock.
Although I will tell you, it is not going to be easy getting out of here because my original flight was canceled. I did get on another flight. We'll see if that works out. Who knows? Hopefully, fingers crossed.
I hope that you're able to get to Florida.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll be on suicide watch. Honestly, if I don't get out of here, I need to see the sun.
You know that I was going to say, and school's going to be closed, right?
Yeah, which is another reason I need to get out of here. I love my children. I do. I love them.
I listen. I understand. We over the past 2 weeks, my kids have had this week so far. It's been fine. We've been fine this week, but the 2 previous weeks they had 2 days of school.
Yeah, it's really tough too because at the age my children are at, they sort of learn each day. They learn something new, and it all adds up to sort of a more complete lesson. And it's really been hard, I think, for the teachers because it's been very chopped up. And it's tough on everybody, but ultimately it's tougher on the kids because I think there's just been real holes in what they're learning. So I certainly hope. I think the winters are going to get tougher, and I think we're going to have longer, colder winters. And I really hope people toughen up because it's hard to miss this much school. So hopefully we won't have so many cancellations in the next coming years.
I hope so. And look, I mean, here's the thing: your kids are getting older. Do you worry, Julie, that one day you might be called out by CPS for letting your child stand at the bus stop? Waiting for the bus in the cold? I mean, we've already seen in Maryland.
That is one reason never to move to Maryland, I'll tell you that. And also this food ban I wrote about today. I mean, Maryland is just becoming insanely just totalitarian. It's really unbelievable how much the government invades every aspect of people's lives in that state. It's really disturbing. This case, I'm sure you're talking about, so the free range case out in Maryland and how CPS is basically... it's this kind of, you can tell it's like, we're not going to totally let you go here. They found them, I don't know the words, you might have it in front of you, but they basically can keep a file open on these people for 5 years.
Yeah, unsubstantiated child neglect.
Thank you. Unsubstantiated. I mean, they essentially found these people guilty of a form of child neglect, which allows CPS to keep a file open on them. And so if another one of these nosy neighbors or concerned people driving by calls the authorities and reports them, their children are going to be taken away. It's an absolute travesty. I feel so bad for this family, and we really need to get a hold of this. I think the voters in Maryland need to really consider who they're putting in office, and maybe there needs to be some changes to how CPS is operated. I mean, as if they do not have more important things to do, actual abuse cases to focus on. It's absolutely horrible.
And it's really interesting, Julie. I was talking about this, I think, on Monday's show. I heard a radio story over the weekend, and it was a I don't know what his background was, some anthropologist, some sort of behavioral psychologist or whatever. But back in the 70s, he went to this little town in Vermont, and he started studying where kids played. And he interviewed all the kids, and where do you go, when you get out of school? Where do you go during the summer days? And he mapped this location.
Yeah, I read about this. Yeah.
And it was really interesting. Like, these kids, the average kid could go more than a mile in every direction. This is before cell phones, before GPS, right? You were gone, and that was their boundary. He went back recently, and he did the same thing. Population of the town's about the same. Demographics haven't changed that much. In fact, the kids that he was looking at were a lot of them the kids of the children that he had studied 40 years ago. And what he found was that their area where they were allowed to explore had shrunk so dramatically.
Yeah.
Where they used to be able to play for a mile and a half. Now it was basically you stayed in your yard.
Yeah, and honestly, and we wonder why childhood obesity has gone up. We wonder why there are increasing behavioral problems. We wonder why, you've got, kids getting in trouble. and boys are unable to sit still during school. I mean, we ask all these questions, and yet we're unwilling to examine these types of societal changes. And then when you have parents like the Maryland free-range couple who are actually trying to change this, or actually trying to do good for their family, actually trying to allow their children more space and more freedom to take risks, to make decisions on their own, the state won't let you. The state will not let you be good parents. I mean, we've talked about it on your show before. There was some little boys playing with Nerf guns in their yard, or what were they I can't remember the type of sort of Nerf gun that they were playing with, or soft gun that they were playing with. And a neighbor called the police because it made her nervous. I mean, this is the kind of world that we're living in. It's not just a culture of alarmism. It's like everyone has that neighbor in Bewitched who's constantly looking over at you, making sure you're following the rules and being, sort of following whatever rules they have for their families, or the state rules. It's very disturbing, and as we've seen, this has had an effect on children. Again, we have children. I'm not one to say that there's this epidemic of, I think some of the words about, childhood obesity are a little bit overblown. But we certainly have more sedentary children. We have children that never leave the house. We have children that play video games all day. It's because their world outside has become so boring because we have nervous parents who won't let them out of their yards.
And I'll give you another example of this, sort of the same phenomena, and maybe the pushback against the helicopter parenting. So over the years, Julie, you and I have talked a lot about peanut allergies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how, parents understandably, if your kid's allergic to peanuts, you want to make sure your kid doesn't have an attack. But we've seen this taken to some pretty crazy extremes, particularly in our schools. And nobody really knows how to deal with this. If you're a parent and you think your child might have a peanut allergy, back in about 2000, the recommendation was never feed your child a peanut. And then I think back in 2007, the American Academy of Pediatrics changed this. We really don't know what to do. But a lot of people still follow the old advice of don't feed your child a peanut. Well, now there's this new study that's come out, Julie, that says if your child is susceptible, if he hasn't developed or she hasn't developed a peanut allergy, but you think they might be susceptible, give them peanut products when they're babies. Right. And you actually, you want your kid to be exposed to this. You want them to develop these antibodies. There is a growing recognition, I think, among people, and I'm glad it's finally happening, that, what, we all want to protect our kids as parents, but you can do more damage than provide a benefit if you are an overprotective parent.
Yes, and I agree that there is increased recognition of this, and there is a movement towards free-ranging, parenting, free-range parenting. Thank God for Lenore Skenazy, who's not only helped the free-range parents in Maryland, but really focuses on this issue. But I really have to say it is disturbing, and I worry about the progress of this movement when you have a state that is so overbearing. And look, this is when people read about the Maryland family. It sort of puts it sort of makes people go, oh gosh, I worry. Like, goodness, could I be found guilty of that? And so people need to also recognize that this kind of move, it doesn't just affect this one family. It affects other people's decision to go free range. People should be doing it more. And look, you don't have, fine, if you think it's too far for your 10-year-old and 6-year-old to walk from the park to home, that's fine. But I think it sort of puts a wet blanket on, parents' decisions to give their children any freedoms. It just strengthens the sort of instinct to hover when the state is hovering over you and telling you better make the right decision or we'll take your kids away.
Absolutely. And again, this is perhaps the latest, most egregious example of this, but Julie, we've seen that intrusion in a lot of different areas, including, schools telling children or their parents that they don't approve of the lunch that they're packing for their kids, right? There are all kinds of areas where you as a parent now are being second-guessed or even just told outright, now you actually don't have that authority. You thought you did, but you don't. We're here to watch over you.
Yeah, we're seeing it in every area, and I've talked on this show quite a bit about school lunches. How it is not now. Hey, if you need help, if you're living under the poverty level, or you're struggling to get your kids a meal, there is a school lunch program, and it's here to help you. That's not the message. The message is you're probably going to feed your kids the wrong thing. So why don't you just hand over the care and feeding of your children to the state? And I've said it a million times. It's not just school lunch anymore. Schools offer breakfast, they offer lunch, and they offer dinner. And even if you don't need the free and reduced price school lunches, in some schools, every child, just regardless of income of their families, of their parents, they get a free meal. I mean, every school, it's universal free lunches. They say lunches, but universal free meals. And in many other schools, it's just cheap. If you buy it full price, it's subsidized. So it's designed to encourage parents to hand that over. That is a bad message. I mean, we're chipping away. I mean, pretty soon, I've always had this theory that pretty soon houses are going to be built without kitchens. I mean, what's the point? What is the point, right? I mean, you just drop your kids off at school. You have early drop-off. They have breakfast. They have lunch. They have dinner. There's after-school programs. They go until 6 p.m. Really, all you need to do is take them home and let them sleep in the house. I mean, there's no need for a kitchen. You can do with a tiny college-sized microwave and refrigerator. So I think, again, these are more efforts to tell parents that they're really not necessary, that the state does a better job at raising kids.
All right. So you say that you're concerned, despite this. Again, I think there's growing recognition that this is taking place, and maybe again the concern is that there hasn't. What do you do about it? I guess is the next step. And in Maryland, I mean, have we heard anything, Julie? Have you heard any lawmakers say, "Hey, we need to rein in this system here, so that parents who are simply letting their kids be kids don't get accused of being child neglectors"?
Well, in fact, the Maryland legislature is about to vote on a CPS bill that would give more power to CPS to keep kids away from parents. Now, this is being billed as they can't be returned to abusive parents. But again, CPS defines what is an abusive parent, and according to CPS. This these free-range parents in Maryland, they neglected their children. They were guilty of some form of neglect, and so I don't think that I think Maryland's going the opposite direction. In fact, I think they're strengthening CPS to do these to take on parents, to keep kids away from parents, probably strengthen their ability to take kids away from their parents. So that's certainly a concern. And I think we need to get to a point where CPS is understanding what they're supposed to do, which is keeping kids, free from injury and true abuse, drug abuse and physical abuse, mental and sexual abuse. This is the reason for CPS, not to harass parents about the choices that they make, the perfectly fine choices that they make for their families.
And I could not agree with you more. And that's the thing. I mean, I think most people can even understand. All right, Gladys Kravitz calls the cops. The cops take the kids home. Sorry, we got to call CPS. CPS comes out. This is where I think our expectation of reality deviates from what actually happened, because our expectation would be that CPS would say, "Oh, you're letting your kids walk home from the park. All right, never mind." And it would never be a story again. Instead,
right.
2 months later, we get this finding, this weird finding of unsubstantiated child neglect, which means that somebody made a complaint. We can't substantiate it,
right.
but the complaint itself means that we can keep a closer eye on you for the next 5 years. That's the issue. It's not that we need to disband CPS or that anybody's making these claims that child abuse doesn't happen, but that this pretty clearly wasn't a case of child abuse, and there really isn't that need for additional scrutiny.
Absolutely, and what has happened in Maryland, it makes me so worried that CPS, again, is so they've expanded their mission to lecturing parents on what they think is the proper way to parent. That's not their job.
All right. With that, Julie, we got to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Enjoy the snow day tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. And have fun in Florida. Julie Gunlock joins us of the Independent Women's Forum.